Hey guys, I am back with a new video, and today I'm going to be talking about a topic that we were discussing within one of my film classes. If you guys don't know, I'm in college. I'm taking a film class called Black, Brown, and Queer on Film, which is basically a concept of racialized and queerness in media sources or media outlets, specifically within documentary forms and types. And the light that just kind of like dulled down was the light I have on my phone that is attached, but it went out. I think it's dead. So anyway, I just wanted to bring up a few points. We were discussing female masculinity versus trans masculinity or trans identity in a sense, and the connotation of masculine female identified people versus masculine trans folk, or specifically trans men in categories, because of the distinction between that there are women, there are people identify as women that are masculine, portray masculine traits, versus people that identify as male but were assigned female at birth. So that distinction. We were also reading Jack Helmstan book on female masculinity itself. Briefly, some articles talked about tomboyism, a bit of childhood, appearances and social cues about masculinity and what that really means. The concept of like constructing masculinity and what that kind of differs from. So yeah, basically, in my experience, again, this is only my experiences as a person of color, specifically a black person who also have trans experience. I would say at one point prior to my transition, I displayed masculine traits, quote unquote, as an adolescent pupil, because around middle school I was displaying more masculine traits that were kind of seen as pushing against the norm of gender and what that meant, and how at a certain age it's kind of expected of you to stop portraying those masculine qualities, because the assumption that you will start to embrace femininity qualities or feminine qualities so that it is desirable towards straight cis men, which I think is bullshit. Because again, I was kind of raised in this connotation of half and half, of that you can have masculine qualities and still be a girl because girls are capable of doing what boys can do. At the same time, that if you display too many masculine qualities, you would be mistaken as a masculine person or as a man or a guy in some sense, and that is something to be shameful of. So those two big oppositions are kind of also a big counterpart to what we were talking about in class. We watched the documentary called Still Black, about black trans men. We also watched a bit of the aggressives, about masculine women or female masculinity in a sense. And there were parts within the films, specifically the second one, where they talked about how some of the like participants were biting their chests and flattening it to create like an illusion that they had no chest, and having very masculine traits in a sense that is connotated with being a man, but there wasn't a distinction between them wanting to be a man or transition versus them just displaying these traits. In my opinion, I think the whole like bigger debate of like, is it okay if lesbians date trans men, or is it okay if a trans man is with a lesbian, yada. I think that's all depends on the person himself. Me personally, if I identify as a trans man, which I do, I would not be romantically or sexually involved with a lesbian, because technically speaking, she would not validate or probably would invalidate the fact that I am a man, emotionally presenting and like mentally speaking compared to physically. On that other note, I think the connotation, or rather the juxtaposition of female identified people having very masculine traits or displays even, is something that society is becoming more aware. They are more socially aware of it, but I feel like on a more mental note, it's also becoming a flip side of whereas a line between female masculinity and the fine line between transness, because there are masculine women in the world that do not appear as traditional women, quote unquote, in the sense that if, example, they go into a women's restroom, they will be chased out because they do not appear female. But then it also brings up the notion of, say, if there's a trans woman who wants to use the same bathroom, where does that lie? Of like, if they look like a female, what does that even mean to look like a certain gender, which falls into this gender binary that cis people are the norm, which should not be the case. Cis should not be the norm. So that's just my thoughts briefly on the text we read and the movies we watched. I personally liked them a lot. It meant a lot for me because I never really seen trans men of color besides like small snippets of other documentaries, but never a whole documentary dedicated solely to that. And my thoughts, I need to take a lot of notes. I will probably just talk more about transness and blackness identity within intertwined, more in depth if you guys are interested in that. Let me know what your opinions are on this topic of female masculinity versus transness, or female masculinity and the concept of trans masculinity in that concept. So yeah, your boy.